How you doing? Nina Turner, former Ohio State Senator, former chairwoman, co-chair of the Bernie Sanders campaign, former president of Our Revolution, unbossed,
Yeah,
the Young Turks. It's on 4 o'clock Eastern, I believe.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
So people go to YouTube, unbossed Nina Turner, and check me out.
I hate to start this way because I think several interviews we've done, I've had to start this way. But obviously what's going on in Memphis is capturing America's attention. Tyre Nichols was a 29-year-old who, I think it's accurate what his lawyer said, saying he was treated like a human piñata. I know you're a CNN contributor. I want to ask you, because I just hear this narrative across cable news and the media that this was kind of like an exception. This was just bad policing. It's the training. They didn't have, where was the supervisor? A lot of stuff that frankly sounds like bullshit to me. I think this is not the exception. And I think a lot of this kind of beating happens. We just don't see it on camera.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jordan. I mean, I covered this yesterday on my show. I'm broken up all day today. I've just been in a haze, and certainly nothing compared to Tyre's family, what his mother, his father, the rest of his family members are enduring. But I can tell you, as a Black woman in America and a Black mama of a Black son, I can definitely relate so much. So it's just like a heaviness, today for so many of us. This is not an exception. This is the rule, unfortunately. And this is what this country does not want to come to grips with. The fact that it was 5 Black police officers, I think, is what's causing the most jarring, emotions. And as Tyre Nichols' mother said, they have caused shame on the Black community and on their families. And quite frankly, they kicked out of the tribe. They did treat Tyre with such disdain. I mean, just watching that video over and over again, you can't hurt. I mean, I've been crying all day about that and just total disbelief. So whoever the reporters are, whether they're on mainstream media or independent media, who are putting out there that this is an exception to the rule, they are absolutely wrong. And we can look at the facts. This is not an exception to the rule. This is the rule. Now, one day we want this to be the exception of the rule. And another point I want to make, Jordan, is that yes, we would like to think that if the officers are Black or they're brown or they're a woman or they come from, whatever different identity groups, we would like to think that those types of people serving in law enforcement would somehow be different. And sometimes they are. But being Black or being brown or being a woman is not enough. You have to come with a certain ideology, a certain belief, a certain love and reverence for the people that you serve every single day. And then your Blackness or your brownness or you being a woman is a bonus on top of that. But that alone is not enough, because they are, in fact, socialized in the same conditions that you and I are. The only difference is they have a badge and a gun. And so white supremacy, anti-Blackness rules the day in the United States of America. And for anybody not to fully admit that, they are delusional at best.
I want to ask you also, because obviously, a lot of attention is to the worst part of that video. We played some of it, but the beginning of that is like so many altercations. I mean, I don't know why they needed that many officers for a so-called traffic stop. They had their guns out right away. They demanded he come out of the car. Again, I don't know why. This unit, it's called the Scorpion unit, which I don't even know where to start with that, but they say it was to go after weapons and these kind of things. But it seems that this, I don't want to brand all police. I mean, I know you have police in your family, but
please don't brand all of them.
I'm not saying all, but there's way more than a few bad apples that seem to be using their jobs as a just ability to exert power and terrorize people.
Because it's systemic, Jordan. This is not about one individual. Of course, we have individual law enforcement officers who are good, who really are in this to protect and serve and to make a difference. But we have far too many who are not, because this is systemic in nature. Even the very birth or genesis of policing in America, especially when it comes to the Black community, was born from the slave patrols. And then once, the Black codes and Jim Crow and all of that in the South, trying to keep Black people, Black bodies, Black minds under control. Because guess what? Black people have always needed to be controlled in these United States of America. That is the vantage point. And so when you train people up that way to see Black people as the other, when you militarize the police in the way that this country has done, this is the result that you get. And so it is time out. We need good law enforcement officers to speak up and to speak out about their sisters and brothers and family and friends that are in law enforcement who do these types of things. And let me tell you something, Jordan, regardless of the badge and the gun, those 5 men are sick. Those 5 men are cruel, and what they did to Tyre Nichols is inhumane. And so a lot of what we saw not only speaks to the fact that they had a badge and a gun and they carried the power of life and death literally in their hands. What we also saw on display is some folks that lack humanity. They just rotten to the core, and it exhibited itself on those streets in Memphis and caused the death of this 29-year-old Black man who is a father, who is a son, and now denying his child the opportunity to be with their father, and just stripped this man. I mean, it's just, I mean, to watch something like that, it just seems surreal. It did harken back to Rodney King, Jordan, for me. You know, the visual of that was just like in what they were saying to him, and I'm going to tase you. And Nichols said at one point, y'all doing too much. You know, why are you doing? Then this grown man calling for his mama. There is something wrong in America. So it's not just about one individual, Jordan. Just to surmise this, the bottom line is that it is a systemic failure in this country, and policing as we know it, from the streets to the courts, reinforce white supremacy and anti-Blackness. And we see it play out time and time again, and we will see it play out again. This is not the first time, and it will not be the last time, unfortunately.
One more question on this. You know, President Biden called the family, he said all the nice words. Democratic Party, when they had control, they watered down the George Floyd Policing Act. They stripped qualified immunity out of it. They basically made it into a nothing bill. You know, they could kneel and wear their kente cloth, but you obviously ran twice to become a congresswoman. You know, didn't make it, but we know what the Republicans are. What's going to change? What is Biden? Biden right now could go hold a press conference and call for ending qualified immunity. Not that that fixes everything, but it certainly goes a long distance.
They're going to do nothing but tweet. You know, instead of them calling their comm staff, they should have been calling a policy meeting. You know, instead of being out there saying the right things, how about doing the right things? And you're right, George, when they had power in the 117th Congress, they did absolutely nothing towards this regard. And you're right, not one of these things will work, but we need reform is over. We need just a total overhaul, like starting from scratch when it comes to policing, and a real truth and reconciliation in this country about what the legal system has done to destroy Black bodies, Black minds, Black hearts, and Black souls. And so hey, the Senate could go, let's go on in the filibustering. Let's get to work. Let's do some real work and some real reform. They're not going to do that. They're going to tweet the right things. They'll Instagram the right things. But other than that, have a press conference, call the family. But it's not going to go much beyond that. And all you got to do is ask George Floyd's family that. It ain't going much beyond that.
Turning the topic, sorry to bring up a night that probably doesn't have great memories for you, but want to play a clip from our interview, April, I believe, or May, I forget. You lost to Congresswoman Shontel Brown. You did cause a little bit of a stir that night, though. Let's play the clip. Am I dreaming, or did you just announce a run for president?
Well, I said 2024, here we come. So I'm going to leave that for other people's imagination. But I said California got something to say about this. Iowa got something to say about this. Nevada got something to say about this.
Well, let me ask you, would you consider running as an independent rather than in the Democratic primary if you ran?
I would consider that. Absolutely, I would. All options are on the table.
I know you're going to be mad, but hey, have to follow up. Obviously, a couple months after that, maybe emotions are less raw. But I think whether you run or not, clearly you feel it. The progressive movement is a little bit in the wilderness right now. It's looking for leaders. It's looking for somebody to challenge what seems to be a continuation of the same old, same old. Have you decided on what you're doing next? Are you considering running? And if so, how would you do it?
I haven't made any decisions yet, Jordan. You didn't have to do that, although I knew that you would, knowing you the way that I do. You didn't have to do that, but you went there. No, I haven't made any decisions, but you are absolutely right. If we continue on this course, not much is going to change. What this Congress and this president, by way of example, did to the rail workers to chill everybody, every worker in this country. They came for the rail workers, and that they are the personification of every other worker in this country. Voting rights went nowhere. George Floyd Policing Act went nowhere. PRO Act went nowhere. They let the child tax credit expire after pulling children out of poverty. You catapult them right back into poverty. They letting companies like Moderna get away with highway robbery, literally. That drug, the drug that we use for the COVID vaccination was created by the taxpayers' dollars, but yet these fools are going to get a chance to up the price to $130 when it costs $2 and some change to make, and they were only charging the federal government about $26. They are allowing, through the lack of pushing public policies that change material conditions, this kind of suffering to go on. And so, yeah, somebody got to challenge, or a group of somebody's have to challenge. And you're right, the progressive movement is in the wilderness, and they can't be there too much longer. And it does call on people, not just one person, Jordan, but a group of people who have the type of courage to continue to challenge the system. And part of challenging that system is actually running for that seat. Another way to challenge the system is to keep pushing for third parties in this country, ranked choice voting and other things that we could use as tools until we get there. The vast majority of the voters, as you know, Jordan, and you have reported on this in the past, do not subscribe to the duopoly. They don't. They want another option. And especially if you ask millennials and Zs, they definitely know that this is not working.
And let me ask you, whether it would be you or somebody else, what are your thoughts? Because you see that so many people are, beyond done with the Democratic Party. You just went down the list of what they're not doing. I agree with you. Do you feel that, not to say nobody should ever run as a Democrat again, but do you think if you were going to do it, do you put any stock in the idea of, listen, the odds are very long that a third party candidate on this day could win the presidency, but somebody needs to start that movement on the presidential level. What do you think for that argument that we're never going to do it if nobody tries, but we know what will happen within the Democratic Party?
Well, George, you know what you laid out there is exactly right. Somebody or a group of somebodies do have to start it somewhere. We know that because of the duopoly, and both duopolies answer to one master, and that's their owner donors, period. The corporate wings of both of these parties, Republicans and Democrats, are failing the workaday people of this nation, and they need options. So there are people, we got the Working Families Party, even though it's not national in nature. They're primarily in New York. They're here in Ohio. They're in different states. That to me is a really good template. We know that, and our brother Andrew Yang has started something as well. We need more people to start these kinds of things and to challenge the system. And yes, somebody is going to have to take the plunge and to run nationally as an independent. I don't think we're that far from people doing that, because people are disgusted. And I tell you this, if they take away, if they scale back in any way, Medicare and Social Security, they're going to have a problem on their hands, the likes of which they have not seen in modern times. I really do believe that will be the genesis to push more people to do what we see our sisters and brothers and family and friends do. Jordan, the man said he was going to up the retirement age by 2 years from 62 to 64. And millions of them took to the streets instantly. It didn't take a whole lot, because they are very cognizant of what they deserve, and that people deserve to be able to retire at an age where they still can enjoy their lives and not retire with your back broken down. See, we got to get that kind of firepower in the United States of America. And it's just going to take a few people to light that spark, Jordan. But I think we are right there as a nation. The tinderbox is right there. We got to keep pushing. And I'm certainly committed to being one of those leaders. As you know, I am a Democrat. Every office I've ran for as a Democrat, I'm a member of the DNC from the great state of Ohio. But it does not stop me from challenging confronting these people and telling the truth about what they are doing and what they are not doing, Jordan. And at some point, the Democratic Party has to care that neo-fascism is right at our door. Neo-fascism kills you quickly. Neoliberalism kills you slowly. But neo-fascism is a product of neoliberalism. And if they don't care enough to know, why should the voters of this country continue, especially the Black voters who give the Democratic Party over 90% of our vote each and every time? And we're always called upon to save the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party systemically, Jordan, I need people to understand this. I'm not talking about individual stuff, system-wide, policy-wide, something that has generational impact, are doing very little, or if anything, other than taking to social media. We must stop as Americans, stop being complicit in our own demise and do a new thing.
I'd like to ask you, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, whether somebody runs in the Democratic Party or a third party, you were along for the Bernie campaign. You were basically living in South Carolina, trying to elect that man. People should know you basically moved there to try to help him win South Carolina, help him win the presidency. And it's not a secret. I mean, Bernie, made decisions to go up to a certain line, but never crossed that line. One particular instance, I know Zephyr Teachout, who is a New York official activist, wrote a piece for The Guardian, just pointing out facts and basically pointing out that Joe Biden has a corruption problem, that, Bernie Sanders did not stand by that, called that out. I think that whoever runs, whether it's on the national level or Congress, Senate, there seems to be an allergy to calling the Democratic Party what it is, to calling out Joe Biden and others corruption. I don't know what you call it when you set policy based on how much money you get from certain special interests. I mean, you just mentioned Moderna. Ralph Nader has made the point. Joe Biden has the power, the emergency powers, to take the patent that we funded for the vaccine and share that formula with the rest of the world. I'm not trying to get a soundbite. I'm just asking you, will somebody call these politicians, Biden and others, corrupt?
I mean, there are people doing that. And yes, I remember what happened to Zephyr. I mean, the same thing happened to me. I stated the facts. You may remember there was a debate, and one of the debate moderators asked the senator straight up, did he agree with his national co-chair when I talked about his record of authoring the crime bill, being willing to make a grand bargain with the Republicans to chip away at. See, we've been down this road before with Senator Biden. We've been down this road with Congressman Biden, with him, he wanted to make a grand bargain with the Republicans to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and was very adamant about that thing. Authored the crime bill, is responsible for students not being able to cancel their student debt via bankruptcy, and so many other things that we can name. When then Senator Harris indicted him on the statements that he made about busing and integration, I mean, he said very clearly that he did not want his children going to school with Black children. He didn't want them in the jungle. Now, these are these man's words. So at a certain point, I mean, Jordan, you and I can go down an entire list of things that this current president has done and said while in elected office, not as a private citizen, but as a policy maker. I will state what I said before. At some point, the American people have to stop being complicit in our own demise. And yes, there are people calling out that type of corruption. But listen, some people will go all the way. We're not all wired the same in terms of how much courage one has to challenge the system. It will punish you. And we know this. I mean, look at what happened to me in my run for Congress. It is not an accident that all of those groups got together to try to crush that. Why? Because they know when I got to that Congress, I'm not playing games with these fools, whether they Democrat or Republican. If you are mistreating the American people, I am going to call it out. If you are not using the power that the American people gave to you to help change material conditions, I am going to call it out. There's no such thing. You cannot be blindly loyal to anybody or to any entity. And as I have said before, and I will say it again, I do not worship men and women. I worship God and I serve the people. And ultimately, we got to answer to a higher power that I believe. And when you are elected to office, your job is to answer for the mamas and the papas, the big daddies and the big mamas who live in the hoods all over this country, whether those hoods are urban, rural, or suburban, who need policy help and not to the owner donors. But both of these parties are owned. Both of them are owned at the highest level. There are grassroots people, Jordan, as you know, trying to work still within the system. And God bless those people. We need an inside game and outside game, but we cannot deny the fact that there are corrupting forces in both of these parties. And we have elected officials who are, by definition, corrupt because they answer to the moneyed interests of this country. And they say basically by what they do and do not do, the hell with the everyday people in this country.
And I want to make a point. This isn't a question, but this is a point. And I don't care if people criticize me as a Nina bro, but this is just the facts. To those who say that you lost because you didn't run scorched earth against the Democratic Party, I would say, because I was on the ground, frankly, you lost the first election because you made a comment about Joe Biden. That was the truth. And they put it on billboards all over the city. And they ran ads again. I mean, I was in the hotel room, literally every 20 minutes was an ad about what you said, calling out Joe Biden, and it was all over billboards, and you lost by 4,000 votes in the dead of summer. And I would argue that's why you lost. So for those that say you didn't show courage or bravery, I think you lost because you did tell the truth about the Democratic Party. Second time is different, but that first time,
yeah.
And
the Republican Party too. I mean, I did. And basically the hell with the people who say that as well. You got a lot of people talking a lot of mess, but they will never put nothing on the line other than to be Monday morning quarterbacks and commentating on social media. If you're not in the arena, I really don't want to hear nothing that you got to say. Really. And that's honest. And I don't care if you're progressive or not. All that smack talking when you're not going to sacrifice anything about how hard somebody went or did not win. No, very few people, Jordan, go as hard as I do in the paint. And you know that you have witnessed that. I will. But that doesn't mean I always agree with every single thing that any one person or group of people say. And also, as a Black woman, I just want to let it be known, I claim my agency. So I don't care if you're a progressive, a liberal, a moderate, whatever, little country, little rock and roll. What you're not going to do is tell Nina Turner what to do, period.
Speaking of that, I got to ask, listen, the Freedom Caucus just held Kevin McCarthy hostage. What was it, 10, 15, 20 votes? Obviously, I don't agree with the Freedom Caucus on much of anything politically, policy-wise, but I do agree, hey, play a little hardball. Bottom line, AOC, the squad, they ran on playing hardball. We know what she said, bring the ruckus to the Democratic Party. I'm not saying you need to hold the Democratic Party hostage on every single vote, on every single thing. Being a politician also means you have to compromise sometimes. But I just want to play this clip because AOC responded to the Freedom Caucus, what they did. I just want to play this clip.
I see some people say, Dems should negotiate to get concessions. We do. We do all the time. But what we don't do is bring them publicly in order to empower not just Republicans, but the fascist flank of the Republican Party. And ironically, a lot of the concessions that Kevin McCarthy, in nature, they're not the same ones, of course, but the nature of some of these concessions actually do overlap with some of the concessions that have been the subject of private negotiations on the Democratic side. We have also negotiated for certain budgetary, we have negotiated for certain budgetary rules. We've negotiated there have been negotiations around committees, budgetary rules, and very similar kind of scopes and areas. But we do that prior to getting to the floor vote. Not only that, but when people say Dems should do this, there's also a very critical question of just basic math. The House Freedom Caucus comprises of we see the holdouts here comprised of 21 members. That is a huge faction of your party to go into a vote day without negotiating without satisfying. And for Republicans for Kevin McCarthy to go into a speakership vote while knowing that he does not have 21 people is almost unthinkable. So there's like just the basic math of the issue. Democrats do not have a flank of 21 that would do that. Now, we do have groups of 10, 20, 30 that do negotiate for things, but we do it before the actual floor vote. Now, so there's just like the basic, question of numbers. 21, that.
So there's a little more to that, but I just want to ask you, not only about AOC, but in general, I don't really understand this strategy of let's do everything in private. Sure, and certain things you got to be diplomatic, but this. Bernie Sanders and you and everyone else cultivated a movement, and they're just waiting for a fight. It just doesn't make sense to me, this strategy of AOC, the squad, to do everything in private, say we get concessions, you just don't know about it. I mean, I think what the Freedom Caucus did, whether or not we share the same policy view, we need more of that, and we're not getting that.
Yeah, well, we do not share the same policy views of the Freedom Caucus. I'm going to put that in the parking lot. But the tactics that the Freedom Caucus used to exact concessions was right on the money. There does come a time, and yes, you have to be diplomatic. I served in the Ohio Senate. I was the minority whip for my caucus, meaning it was my job to whip votes, especially votes that were, where we knew that we needed to move as a group. Sometimes those moments are there where you have to make some type of compromise. Get it? Even though some of these people don't know I get it. I did the job. However, there comes a point in time when people show you who they are, as Dr. Maya Angelou once said, you got to believe them. So the tactics that the Freedom Caucus used was right on the money. One of the concessions that they got was that the leader will not use his PAC or anything affiliated with his PAC, by way of example, to come up against Republicans running in an open, in a primary where the outcome is going to be a Republican or a Republican. Now, if the progressives had done that, people like me or Amy Villela or even Jink, others who have run that way. India,
Jessica Cisneros.
Jessica Cisneros, right. India Walton on the local level. Are you kidding me? These folks said, let me tell you something, man. If you want to be speaker, don't bring it here. If it's if it's a primary and a Republican is going to win, don't bring that money up in here. That's a concession that they got. Bills lay for 72 hours. Don't put this stuff all up on the floor like that. We need a chance to read. I mean, things like that tactically make sense that the progressives should have gotten. Now, about the numbers. Last time I checked, Shadow President Joe Manchin and his Shadow Vice President Christian Sinema, they got a whole lot done. It's only two of them suckers.
Wait a minute. What are you talking about, Shadow President?
Right.
Manchin and the parliamentarian.
I mean, come on. So it's all in how you are willing to use the soapbox and make requisite demands. And there were moments, especially in the 117th Congress, where the Congressional Progressive Caucus, last time I checked, at least on their rolls, they got 100 people. Now, we know some of them people should not be on there, but all they cared about, all Congresswoman Jayapal cared about was the number. She didn't care about the substance. But let's just say if that caucus was real, they could have gotten a lot because they had the numbers to do just that. So this comes down to a question, sister and brothers, family and friends, of courage. And Jordan, I do agree. It cannot be on every issue, but there are certain issues that type of courage must show itself. And damn it, if you don't get invited to the Christmas party, to hell with the Christmas party. Okay, go party with the people. Because ultimately, this is what this comes down to as well. People want to curry favor with these folks that will stab you in the back. No sooner looking at you eye to eye. They will do just that.
One issue in particular, right when Biden got in, CARES Act. He needed to pass the CARES Act. He couldn't afford not to pass COVID relief. We still had 3,000 people a day dying. The economy was in tatters. Parliamentarian says, I can't do a $15 minimum wage. They had the votes.
Yeah.
The House, Nancy Pelosi only had a 4 or 5 seat majority. They had more than 4 or 5 progressives in that squad, plus several of them. They said, okay. I mean, Donald Trump fired the parliamentarian. Okay. She's not an elected person. It's an advisory opinion. So, I mean, that's just one example. And I think, at the end of the day, this is not about personalities. This is about, to me, it's not enough that we share values. You gotta have some grit and some fight to fight, even if you are going to have some reputational damage, as she said.
At some point, you got to come to these offices, especially when you're trying to do something of the magnitude of changing systems. You got to go in there saying, this may be my only term, and be okay with it. And that means that you are going to go in there and scorch earth when necessary. Because ultimately, Jordan, see, the problem is too many of these people care more about what the upper echelons of their respective parties have to say versus what the suffering of the people, what that kind of suffering is. And if we centered the people, I can't tell you how many times I get questions on media about what the Democratic Party thinks or what the leader. I don't give a damn about what they think. When Big Mama and Big Papa can't feed their family, I don't care about what they think. When rail workers are deprived of their opportunity to use the biggest tool in their toolbox, which is to take their labor and deny it so that they can get some sick leave, I don't care about what President Biden or Secretary Buttigieg and them other folks think. At a certain point, you have got to center the needs of the people who are suffering at a certain point. When folks can't afford eggs and we gonna sit up here and say that the economy is doing well, it's only doing well for the folks who are the ultra wealthy. It ain't doing well for the workaday people of this nation. When gas prices are this high, when we can't get the minimum wage increase, when dirty water is still in Flint, as you covered extensively, dirty water in Jackson, Mississippi. Who the hell cares about what the leadership of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, for that matter, has to say when people are suffering? So, Jordan, what I believe is that too many of these folks lack intestinal fortitude because their calculus is, let me keep staying in this institution instead of saying this may be my one and only shot and I'm going to take it. Everybody going to know that I was here.
Right.
You see, that's one of the reasons why they didn't want Senator Turner up in that piece. Because everybody was gonna know.
Well, I could tell you, because I was on the ground twice covering your congressional races. Corporations don't throw down $3 million in August for the hell of it. They must have thought you were serious. My last question, now that you are technically a media personality, host of Unbossed at the Young Turks, 4:00 Eastern, Monday through Friday. I want to ask you, I'm sure you've observed it. Hell, you've been a recipient. It just seems like the online left, I get it. People are pissed off and angry and desperate. It just seems like it's become one hamster wheel of fighting with each other. And hell, I've been guilty of it myself. Sometimes you go at people because you think they have bad motives or, just aren't doing the right thing. But I turn on my YouTube as I'm holding my newborn, and it's like 10 different channels are fighting with each other on Twitter. And I'm not saying, we all like a good food fight from time to time, but I just ask you, what is that accomplishing? I'm not saying don't criticize YouTube hosts or, people. We're all public figures, but at the end of the day, what's getting accomplished if we're spending more time fighting with each other than Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, McConnell, Marjorie Taylor?
Nothing is being accomplished. And that's what the other side wants. Us to fight one another instead of putting that energy towards fighting a system that denies dignity to the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class in this country. Imagine if the progressive left, and now I don't know, Jordan, I put freedom fighting on progressive now because hell, too many people say progressive and they really not. They just saying the words. I mean, just all you got to do is look at that Congressional Progressive Caucus, which is useless, absolutely useless. So now I got to put a qualifier on the word progressive these days. But basically, no, we shouldn't be fighting each other on things like that. We need to put our energy towards getting the deep-seated change that we need. And that's having an inside game and an outside game in terms of turning the wheels of power to bend towards the needs of the poor and the working poor in this country. So it's all theater. That's all it is. It might make you feel good in the moment, but if that's what the majority of the effort of the so-called progressive left is being used for, then we've already lost before we begin. So your point about the wilderness is very telling. Where the state of where we are right now, our side has to get more disciplined, and we have to be more agile and keep our eyes on the prize. And the prize is actually to change systems, not to fight each other on Twitter and Instagram all the damn time. It gets us absolutely nothing.
And you sure you don't want to announce you're running for president while we're at it?
No, Jordan, I do not want to make that announcement, but I cannot fault you for trying, darling. You one of the best at it.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Everybody check out.
Please donate to Status Coup. Jordan and the team are out there doing the people's work. I am always impressed, rooting for you. And I got to just say this again, that the work that you all did and continue to do in Flint, Michigan has been nothing but awe-inspiring. Please keep it up. And for those of you who are viewing, please send the link to your friends and your frenemies. This is the time we want frenemies even in on this, that support independent media, because this is the only way you are going to get a different point of view whereby you can use your critical thinking and make your own decisions. But Jordan and Status Coup crew, they cover stories that most media outlets do not. So please, please, please donate.
And everybody, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Everyone check out Nina at the Young Turks. Best thing they've done in many years. 4 o'clock Eastern, unbossed. At TYT's network. Thank you, Nina. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Jordan.